Main engine ignition, all 3 engines up and burning. 2.
To whom it may concern.
1. And liftoff.
Lift? What is this, some Hollywood liposuction? Lift? You know we ain't about all that. Welcome to the Skull and Bones Show. Welcome to Skull and Bones Show. We are Skull and Bones Radio.
Yes, we are.
Jean Perrion.
And your boy, Mickey 3 Jammersfield. I'm not going to lie. This is going to be a little bit of a rough segment, I think. As we all know, and I'm sure I've heard by now, and if you haven't, well, you're hearing it now. We've lost one of the greats this week.
One of the greatest, actually.
Yeah, it's sad. I'm teary-eyed right now. Even talking to this microphone. Every now and then you lose somebody that was I don't know. It was a game changer for you.
Very iconic, very influential,
heart touching, you know.
One of the greatest, I don't know, rock stars to come out of Seattle, right?
Yeah, man, it's nuts, and it's breaking my heart. This is a rough show for me to do. I'm not gonna lie. Soundgarden was the first band that got signed out of Seattle and paved the way for the grunge scene for, the big four. We had Soundgarden, Nirvana, and we had Alice in Chains, and of course Pearl Jam. And it sucks to say that Chris Cornell's gone, man. It's sad.
So when did it happen?
It happened this Wednesday night. He was playing the Fox Theater in Detroit, and it was a little bit crazy, dude, because apparently he got done with the show, and well, first off, I guess the last song that he sang was kind of like almost maybe like had some subliminal messages, because apparently he was talking about like ending life or something to that effect in his song, from what I've heard. But it was a little crazy because after the show, his wife called, or he called his wife. Somehow they ended up on the phone with each other, and she was saying he was like slurring his words and stuff like that. He just wasn't making a whole lot of sense, and he just kept repeating like, "I'm just tired. I'm just tired." I guess she was saying like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
He was just saying, "I'm just tired." And so, anyways, after the gig, and after that phone call, I guess he went back to his hotel room, the MGM in Detroit, at MGM Hotel, and so she asked his bodyguard to go check up on him. So the bodyguard's strolling down through the hallway and goes to his hotel room. The door's locked. He knocks. There's no answer, so he eventually kicks in the door, and then he goes into the restroom door and finds that that's also locked. And he knocks on the door, doesn't get a response, and then he breaks into that door, and he finds Chris Cornell unresponsive on the floor, man, just with blood all over the place. And
damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, dude, it's absolutely nuts. So apparently, obviously, he tried to get him to come to. He couldn't do anything. So then medical teams arrived, and they tried to, revive him, with CPR and stuff like that, and they couldn't get him to come back. And so within 2 hours, he was pronounced dead. So yeah, man, it's nuts. It really sucks. Chris Cornell, man, he had pipes from another world, man. I mean, he was the front man for Soundgarden. He was, after Soundgarden had broken up, the guys from Rage Against the Machine, they reached out to Rick Rubin, who's this big time music producer, as we all know. That guy's produced all kinds of bands, and so then Rick Rubin got Chris Cornell to come into a meeting with Rage Against the Machine, the musicians from Rage, and then they started Audioslave, and then he had another successful band. It's just crazy how this is just, I don't know, man.
I think I heard that he had a four octave range. Is that what it was?
Dude, he was up there. I personally feel like he was up there with like even Axl Rose, dude.
Yeah. I remember I wasn't so much familiar with him. I'm very familiar with Soundgarden, but when Audioslave, that song Cochise, that song came out, like that was a hit, and that's whenever I became more familiar with, like, his name became synonymous with like the guys from Seattle and Soundgarden.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But this is definitely a tragedy. I think the rock and roll industry is definitely feeling this. And he's been doing it for over 20 plus years now?
Oh yeah, man, he's been at it for a long time. It's funny because they say in order to have a successful career, you either have to be the first, the best, or the only. And he definitely knocked out two of those categories. They were the first band that got signed. Like we said, they paved the way for the rest of the grunge bands to come out, and I think he was really good at what he did.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I don't even have words for, the suicide thing. I think we had a clip over here though. We were talking about, we don't know what his situation was. I don't know how he grew up. I don't know if his childhood affected anything, or but I don't know. I think we had this clip where Joe Rogan was talking about people who come from certain areas.
Yeah, let me go ahead and play that for us real quick. It's actually really interesting, but we'll get.
You know what's really crazy, man? I read the statistic the other day about suicide, that people in poor neighborhoods are far less likely to kill themselves. People that are in the struggle.
Yeah, well, I actually believe that because they're fighting for something.
Yeah.
And someone that's already got everything, and then they're end up with no drive, with no goal, and nothing left to achieve. And so then all of a sudden they're just staring at the mirror without anywhere else to go.
So I think what happens is, when you're a young band like Soundgarden was, or Pearl Jam, or these guys coming out of Seattle, right?
Yeah.
They really created their own scene. Those guys were hungry.
Yeah.
I mean, literally hungry. Those guys were starving musicians, but they loved what they did. And back then, when you're a young guy and you're rocking these shows and you don't have any money and you're just getting by on ramen noodles and stuff like that, you're not only physically hungry, but you're also hungry for success. You know what I'm saying? And so I kind of think that a lot of these guys, they're able to live off of the hopes and the dreams of one day becoming successful.
Well, I wonder because we have Nirvana, we had Pearl Jam. Who was the other band? Pearl Jam and
dude, you're talking about like Alice in Chains and Pearl.
All those guys came out of that Seattle, Washington scene.
Right.
And I don't know about you, when I think of that whole area, I think it's known as being a very gloomy, a very depressing
without a
place.
doubt, yeah.
And obviously these guys, grunge was a big part of the influence in that area. And they were trying to get out of there, and music was very prominent for them.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was a way for them expressing themselves, and absolutely, I think you're right. I think that the music definitely reflected, that Seattle kind of the weather up there. It's always gloomy, it's always raining, and I don't think they get a whole lot of sunshine and clear days out there like we got in San Diego. But what's funny, man? There's only one guy left standing out of all those bands. When you think about it, Kurt Cobain went first.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he was killed or whether
suicide.
He killed, it was apparently a suicide by shotgun. So Kurt Cobain was the first one to go. Then Lane Staley had a drug overdose. And unfortunately now Chris Cornell. So that only leaves one guy left, man.
And who is it?
Eddie Vedder, bro, from Pearl Jam, dude. So what were you talking about earlier? Something about we need to put him in bubble wrap or something?
Yeah. One of our friends was talking about how all these guys have passed away being from Seattle, and he's the only one that's left is Eddie, so we better bubble wrap him to keep him safe, I'm
gonna Facebook message this guy, bro, we're on our way, don't move. We're gonna come bubble wrap you, we're gonna keep you safe.
I wonder what he's thinking though. Eddie, I wonder what he's thinking about all this. He's like,
oh my God, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Another one down, and
he's the last man standing.
Yeah, it's like you said, the big four, right?
Yeah, the big four. I mean, when you think about the frontman, Eddie Vedder is literally the last man standing. And actually, it's interesting about Eddie Vedder because he lived here in San Diego. A lot of people don't know that. They see him as a Seattle guy, but originally he was here in San Diego. Man, he surfed down at Pacific Beach. You know what I mean? And then it's crazy. He ended up eventually going up there and joined that whole music scene. But, I don't know. I wonder what goes through these guys' heads. Like like we were talking about when you're a starving rock star, or not a rock star yet, but a starving musician wanting to be a rock star, like you have every reason in the world to go make it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure when you're a starving musician, you probably don't have a girlfriend that you probably really want to have with you. You know what I mean? There's probably some little hood rat running around with you.
You could, man. She could be the one that she was there for the ride, and she'll be there for you when you park. And you very well could.
I think those kind. I mean, it's possible, but I seriously doubt that because I think those kinds of girls are very, very rare. I think most of them are probably little hood rats, and they go out in the little groupies, and they go to the shows and stuff like that, and they have fun with them after the shows. But like those guys back then, like they had every reason to go big, and so I guarantee you, suicide was not on their mind. However, now there's some speculation saying that what happens once you've become a rock star, and then you've experienced all the offerings that a rock star has to offer. I don't know. I know we had another clip here that they were going to play, and I think they might have some valid points. Why don't you go ahead and hit that for us?
Yeah, here we go.
You know, and I'm not talking about Chris Cornell in particular, but for some people I know, one of the things that happens is that when they become very successful and they're still not happy, then they get hopeless. They just feel like, well, I have everything, and yet I'm fucking miserable. You know, I have a nice big house, I drive this fancy car, and I still am miserable. Like, there's no hope. Like, this life is meaningless.
I don't even know what to say to that.
I don't know what to say
to be honest with you, when you hear that, and you just don't even know what to say to that.
You know, one thing that why I don't understand it, I like struggle. I like it. I think it's important.
No, there's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about having something that you're striving for, some goal. And like you just said, when all those goals have been achieved, and now you're sitting there at the top of the mountain, and now you don't feel happy, what do?
Just pick up a hobby, man. Find something you suck at and get better at it. I mean, that seems so simplistic.
So let me ask you this, Mick, because
go ahead.
you're an aspiring rock star.
Well, I was. I don't know if I am now, but go for it.
So do you think, like, having all the money, well, I guess this applies for anyone, not just, rock stars. But do you think, once you get that level of success, you get your money, you get your cars, do you think that you'll ultimately be happy?
You know what? I got to be honest with you. So this is a bit of a game changer. I mean, we've lost lots of rock stars, but this guy, I think, is a bit of a game changer as far as like my mentality is concerned. Because, I don't know. I used to think that, but after what happened this week, I don't even know anymore. Like now it's got me kind of questioning, like, if I was to ever hit it big, or was to ever play in a big band, like, what would my mentality turn into? I don't know. So I think that's a tough one. Maybe it's one of those things you what's that, grass is greener on the other side kind of thing? Mm-hmm. Like when you're on the unsuccessful part of it, side of the fence, you're always looking at like, oh man, that's just where I need to be. That's where I need to be, right? But once you're there and think about this, this guy probably had any and every girl that he ever wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I guarantee you there's probably Model 10s throwing him every night after tours. The dude probably had all the drugs in the world that he could ever do. You know what I mean? Once you have that kind of money, like these guys were saying, like maybe he just got an empty hole in his soul. I don't know.
I'll say two things real quick. The grass is greener where you water it.
Water it.
Think about that.
All right.
But also, I mean, I feel like a lot of the focus has become, this guy's a successful rock star. Why would he kill himself? He has everything, right?
Sure.
I don't know. I think ultimately, it kind of more comes down to like what was he going through personally. Because when you think about suicide, that's a big. I mean, you're ending your life. Like,
Right.
What would drive a person to that point where they want to take their own life, where they no longer want to exist?
Well, the family is saying that apparently he struggled with anxiety, and he had he was taking these pills called Ativan, and so apparently when his wife was having a phone conversation with him after that show, apparently he said that he admitted he took one or two extra pills, and maybe that played into it. I don't know, but I know that the family was saying that there was no way on earth that he would have ever taken his own life, and now that the medical examiners are saying, no, this was deliberate. He deliberately killed himself. He hung himself.
He hung himself, yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's. I don't know what to say. I mean, where were the friends at? I mean, were there any telltale signs initially leading up to this that was like, okay, maybe he's going through something really, really personal?
Well,
inside?
I don't know. I think the wife was saying that for the most part that everything seemed normal at home and all that stuff. Apparently, it was just after this one particular show that he was having some issues. I don't know. Maybe we'll never know. Maybe we'll never. I mean, like, we weren't in his shoes. We don't know what he was thinking. What was Kurt Cobain thinking when he pulled the trigger? I mean, that's something to this day. That's over 20 years later, and we're still talking about, did he really kill himself and what was going through his head? We'll never know.
I'm not so familiar with Chris Cornell's story. I know for a fact, obviously, Kurt Cobain was depressed. He had, his own issues where, when he did finally, quote unquote, commit suicide, it was really not much of a surprise for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now you've got Chris Cornell, where it's like he was successful. He was still successful years after, his big hits. I mean, he was still doing big things. He's still touring and
absolutely
still selling shows.
They're a big band.
But I mean, was he sad enough to the point? Has he a history of depression, or did something kind of inside just break to where he drove him to?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever get the answer to that question.
Yeah.
It's like one of Robin Williams. What took him to do what he did as well. Unfortunately, I really wish we could have met him. I know that we were talking about maybe hopefully having Chris Cornell on Skull and Bones at some point, but Before we go into killing this segment, I do want to read a couple of tweets that